The Royal Grenada Police Force wants to get the point across that drug use and abuse benefits no one. During a news conference in the last week, members spoke of their grave concern about the drug problem, which in the last 3 months claimed the lives of 2 British nationals, one of African descent. These deaths caused by the ingestion of cocaine is worrying to the police force. Gail McIntyre has details.
We've all heard the saying, a picture tells 1,000 words, and nothing more needs to be said for one to realize that this suitcase, confiscated by police, was found with a quantity of cocaine. These shoes were cut and fit with dangerous drugs, namely cocaine. These are cocaine pellets. 103 of them were swallowed by a female courier and passed out over a period of time. And this is a quantity of U.S. currency. Police believe it was intended as payment for a consignment of drugs sent to a foreign country. These are just some of the ingenious ways couriers are using to move and pay for the transport of drugs to and from another country. The head of the local drug squad, Superintendent Rodriguez James, says the police force is gravely concerned about the drug situation in Grenada. He says from a demographic and geographic point of view, Grenada is surrounded by a number of beaches and inlets, which is good for drug traffickers but poses a headache for the police. Making a comparison between the last 2 years, he says just over $9,000 connected to drug trafficking and money laundering was confiscated by police in 2007. That amount increased to just over $26,000 in 2008. What was heartening for the police force, though, was its cooperation with international law enforcement agencies. Last year, more than 3,000 kilos of cocaine were seized outside Grenada from cooperation with the local drug squad. Added to that, 38 kilos of amphetamine tablets destined for Grenada was confiscated in Alaska. However, there was some doubt that the tablets were meant for Grenada, since this country does not have a market for it. Superintendent James wants people to understand that despite the tough economic times being experienced, there are many other alternatives to earn an income besides being a drug mule. He says the harsh reality one can be cut open if they do not pass out the drugs quickly enough for those for which they are intended.
And when we speak about hold you and cut you, we're not speaking about at the general hospital. We are speaking about the persons who you will have to report to when you carry the cocaine back to the foreign country. If you're taking too long to pass it out and so on, they'll probably take a knife, cut you open, retrieve the pellets, and whatever happens to you, well, if somebody brings you to the hospital, you're lucky. All right? There were other instances where persons were...
Does it happen here?
No, not in Grenada.
Okay.
There were instances where persons would have been transporting drugs via the same means. And in the process of transporting them, they had to use the washroom. They went to the washroom, they passed some of the pellets. Because they have to account for every pellet when they return to that particular country, they have to wash it and swallow it over again. That's how serious the situation is. It's a very grave situation.
An appeal is being made especially to those within the 19 to 29 age group who are said to be the most vulnerable.
I cannot recall of a Grenadian being caught in a similar situation in relation to swallowing. But I can recall lots of Grenadians who were arrested here at the airport transporting drugs from here to North America and the UK. As a matter of fact, there are probably a number of young females from Grenada who had been lured into this false hopes of earning probably £5,000 or £6,000 if they could just make one trip to London. They are in jail, they are in prison in London, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years in some instances right now. And I'm talking about the young females between the ages of 8 and 23, 24.
So how do they prepare? Many begin by practicing to swallow sugar folded into small pellets to determine if they are able to do so. And if they are, they then need to know how long they can keep it in their stomach. But what are the risks involved in cocaine ingestion? Dr. Francis Martin explains.
Because of the harshness of the stomach walls and stomach hormones and the hydrochloric acids that are there, the edges can break open. So while the plastics itself would not be digested, but the creases that was made by the wrappings can be rendered open, and that's how the drug can seep into the vascular system. There is no quantity that would be termed fatal for any individual at all. The quantities that are fatal differs greatly from individual to individual, and also from the experience of that individual. So while at 1 ounce may have been deadly for me, may not be deadly for you, and half an ounce could be deadly for another person and not for me. And so that's why it is such a deadly and difficult drug to calculate in terms of, and that's why it's dangerous, and people should really try and stay away from them, because the toxic dose and the effects vary differently from individual to individual. It also differs based on what other things the person have in them. If the person has taken alcohol, the effects of the cocaine is much more devastating than the cocaine itself. It also finds that in the pure form of the cocaine, the metabolites of the cocaine, that means the drugs that are broken down and delivered into the bloodstream, are even more potent than the cocaine itself. So it's a very, very dangerous drug to deal with.
Before ingestion, the cocaine is wrapped in the tips of latex gloves or condoms or cling wrap. For the GIS News Hour, I am Abigail McIntyre.